Hello, everyone. This is Serious Trivia, and today we're starting a brand new Let's Talk Lore series titled The Conquest of Shuhan. This series is currently planned to be 8 episodes long and will follow the upload schedule shown here. For those joining us in the future, the playlist link to the entire series is also provided in the description below, along with the master playlist link to the entire Let's Talk Lore collection on Three Kingdoms history. Now, episode 1 here is titled The Conditions for War, and will mainly cover the Wei rationale behind launching this daunting and ambitious invasion of Shuhan in the summer of 263. At the time, the Kingdom of Wei had enjoyed a rare 6 years long period of relative peace, as the last major military engagement for the Wei side would date all the way back to Zhuge Dan's rebellion in Huainan that lasted from 257 into early 258. After Zhuge Dan's failed rebellion, the only military conflict for Wei would be Jiang Wei's ninth and final northern expedition in 262. But the scale of this conflict was relatively minor and contained to just one province, as the Yong province garrison forces under the command of General Deng Ai easily blunted Jiang Wei's incursion and even dealt sizable casualties to the Shuhan Northern Expedition forces in the counterattack that would force Jiang Wei's side to retreat back to their encampments at Tazhong. For those questioning the Kingdom of Wu's inaction during this 6 year period, one has to understand that the Wu side had suffered massive losses during the Third Rebellion of Huainan, as they actively supported Zhuge Dan, who essentially defected to Wu at the onset of the rebellion. Then, following the failed reinforcement to Shouchun and the subsequent abandonment of the Quan clan, the Wu regent, Sun Chen, decided to deflect responsibility for the defeat as he scapegoated and executed General Zhu Yi before forcing the abdication of the Wu Emperor Sun Liang in favor of Sun Xiu, all in an effort to consolidate his own political power at court. However, Sun Chen's plan eventually failed, as the new emperor, Sun Xiu, would manage to garner enough support to overthrow Sun Chen's regency and finally bring an end to nearly a decade long period of internal turmoil within the kingdom of Wu. And thus, given the state of affairs in Wu after Sun Xiu assumed self rule, the focus of Wu shifted heavily towards recovery and internal development, which helps to explain the lack of military conflicts between Wu and Wei during this period. The result of this 6 year long respite for Wei is first and foremost a thriving military economy that saw the accumulation of surplus weaponry, armor, military supplies, and most importantly, ample food reserves that could now be easily used to support an offensive military campaign against either of the two rival kingdoms. Furthermore, politically speaking, this 6 year period also gave Sima Zhao the time necessary to gain absolute control over the kingdom of Wei, from the imperial court down to the regional military commands. Arguably, the degree of Sima Zhao's control at this point even far surpassed that of Cao Cao's control of the Han, as proven by the killing and replacement of Emperor Cao Mao in 260, as even the cold blooded public murder of the emperor led to zero tangible repercussions for Sima Zhao himself. So, given all this, the conditions, both from a political and a military perspective, were now ripe for a grand military campaign in the summer of 263, as the only question remaining for Sima Zhao was which rival kingdom to attack first. The consensus at the time among Sima Zhao's generals and advisors was that the kingdom of Wu would be the better target. Certainly, the Yangtze River was a formidable natural barrier, but it was still viewed as surmountable, unlike the Qinling mountain range that shielded the Shuhan heartlands. The common strategic argument behind this consensus was built around the idea that the wide span of the Yangtze River would allow the Wei side to take full advantage of its numerical superiority, as demonstrated by Cao Pi's semi successful three-pronged invasion of Wu in the past, whereas the narrow mountain pass into Shuhan would neutralize this advantage, as demonstrated by the failed campaigns of Cao Zhen and Cao Shuang. Furthermore, the supply logistics would also be cheaper and more efficient for attack on Wu, utilizing the water systems in the south. However, despite these logical arguments for the attack on Wu and the seemingly unanimous support from Sima Zhao's generals and advisors, Sima Zhao himself believed that targeting the kingdom of Shuhan would be the better choice. Sima Zhao had this idea all the way back in 261 when he first brought up his desire for the conquest of Shuhan to the Wei imperial court. At the time, the court rejected Sima Zhao's proposal using similar logic as outlined above, as it was generally accepted knowledge of the time that the Qinling mountain ranges were simply unconquerable. To fight against this notion, Sima Zhao ended up sending his lone supporter at court in Zhong Hui to Chang'an as the new general who stabilizes the west, or Zhenxi Jiangjun, in 262, in order to scout out the terrains, organize the supplies, and prepare the troops for a future invasion. Now in 263, after a year-long preparation, Zhong Hui returned to Luoyang to present his attack plan, as a massive three-pronged invasion of Shuhan was drawn up, requiring a total of 180,000 troops. The plan features first a smaller Western attack force totaling 30,000 troops under the command of General Deng Ai, who was the general who conquers the West, and their objective would be to launch a frontal assault against Jiang Wei's northern expedition forces that is now currently garrisoned at Tazhong, in an effort to keep this group of elite Shuhan troops out west, away from the defenses of Hanzhong. The second prong of Zhong Hui's attack plan would be another smaller attack force of 30,000 troops under the command of Zhuge Xu, who was the prefect of the Yong province at this time, and his objective would be to block Jiang Wei's path of retreat through the Yinping Bridge. The final prong of Zhong Hui's attack plan would be led by himself, as Zhong Hui gave himself command of roughly 120,000 troops, and his main objective would be to launch the direct assault of Hanzhong through the use of the Xie and Luo mountain valley passes. Now, this ambitious plan was not an easy sell to the Wei court, who once again felt that attacking through the Qinling mountain range would be impossible, and even General Deng Ai, who was part of Zhong Hui's attack plan, voiced his concerns that without any internal issues within the kingdom of Shuhan, such ambitious attack plan is likely to fail. Knowing that he needed Deng Ai on his side, Sima Zhao ended up sending his chief secretary, Shi Zuan, to serve as Deng Ai's chief military advisor in an effort to persuade Deng Ai into supporting the attack plan. Now, being a staunch Sima clan loyalist, Deng Ai soon changed his tune to support the attack. And for the rest of the Wei court, Sima Zhao's final argument centered around the idea that while both the Qinling mountain range and the Yangtze River are formidable natural barriers protecting the rival kingdoms of Shuhan and Wu, a successful attack on the kingdom of Wu does nothing to make the subsequent invasion of Shuhan easier, as you would still have to march through the Qinling mountain range to attack Shuhan. Meanwhile, if the kingdom of Shuhan falls first, then the subsequent attack on the kingdom of Wu would be much easier, as not only can you launch the multiple front attack of Wu from the north across the span of the Yangtze River, you can also now use the Shuhan heartland to build ships and launch a naval takeover of the river itself from having the upstream control of the Yangtze River, and thus opening up new attack and resupply routes. According to Sima Zhao's grand vision, after the success of the Shuhan conquest, all Wei would need is another 3 years period of stabilizing Shuhan and shipbuilding before launching the final conquest that would finally unite the land once again. Given Sima Zhao's political influence and the buy-ins of key generals in charge of this campaign in Zhonghui and Deng Ai, and Sima Zhao's grand vision of the subsequent conquest of Wu, the Wei court finally relented, and in August of 263, the Wei army, under the command of Zhonghui, marched out of Luoyang in a grand send-off open assembly as the conquest of Shuhan would officially get underway. And with that, our episode here is also coming to an end, as we'll return next time to look at the initial Shuhan response to the Wei invasion. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!